know as gardeners that healthy soil makes healthy plants. But how do you get healthy soil? And that's what we're going to talk about today. So if you have dry soil, cracked soil, soil that seems to pool water, or that you water your shrubs, especially hydrangeas in the summer, and if they still wilt over the day, then there's something probably wrong with your soil. But it's good to know it's not you. It's not necessarily pesticides. It's not necessarily disease. It's probably all in your soil. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So, basic definition. Soil is not dirt. Dirt, by dictionary, is something that is unclean. Soil is wonderful. It's the basis of our life. So we're going to talk about what texture is, what the structure is, how is soil made, what does fertilizing help, what's a soil amendment, what does road tilling do, all the things that go into a soil. And the best thing about soil are the microbes that live in it. Without microbes, we would not have healthy soil, and without healthy soil, we would not have healthy plants. So what is soil? Soil is basically made up of several components. Air and water take up 50% of an aggregate. Mineral particles take up 45%. We'll talk about those in a little bit. Organic matter takes up 5%, and that includes organisms, roots, and humus. I would say humus. That's right. Humus. Organic matter is actually the most important because this is where the microbial life lives, and this is what they do with the organic matter and poop. Then the material is available that the roots can use. Of the minerals that we're going to talk about, this is weathered soil. It happens by chemical, biological, and weather. But it's a very slow process. And you can see it takes millions of years for a mountain to be degraded or for glaciers to be degraded. Climate affects it. Where it is affects it. Time is a big component. Okay. Organic matter that we talked about in the 5% is basically anything that was alive. And as it decomposes, and we'll talk about how that happens in a little bit, then that releases the nutrients that the organic matter is made of. And then that, in turn, goes into what the roots can access. Okay. This is soil structure. Structure is, think of it like a framework of a house, all the interior part. And it's made up of the mineral particles, the pores where the air and water go through, and organic matter. And organic matter, as it gets reduced down to humus, gets kind of sticky, kind of slimy, and it holds together. So it holds together the mineral particles. So an aggregate is this wonderful little clump with pores, minerals, and microbes. Microbes stick to these little particles, and then in turn eat the organic matter, and life happens. Okay. Well, and by the way, the structure is very fragile. If you look at the framework of the house and the giant came down and stepped on it, it would shatter and nothing flat. So it's one of the things that we have to take care of when we think about creating a healthy soil in our gardens. Soil texture is sand, silt, and clay. Sand is the largest. It's gritty, it's perfectly round, has very little nutrient value, but together it really allows the flow of water and air. And it's the largest. Just for example size, a piece of sand is the size of a wheelbarrow. The next largest, or the next smallest, is silt. And silt feels kind of like flour, and it is very erodes, very acrid in form, and it helps hold a clump together. It has very little nutrient value. So if sand is a wheelbarrow, silt is the size of a radish. clay is the smallest, but it probably has the most nutrient value of any mineral. So it's just accessing those minerals. You really can't see a piece of clay except by a microscope. And they fit together like Legos, like pieces of mica. And that's why it's so hard to break up clay. And I'm pretty sure in our valley where we live, most of it's clay. All of us had experience with our clay. So in one way we're very lucky because it has nutrient value, and another way we're very unlucky because it's hard to dig in that clay. This is where organic matter becomes so important. So we have the wheelbarrow of sand, we have the radish of silt, and clay is the size of a mustard seed. But think of that when you're looking at a piece of ground, a piece of dirt, soil. How small those particles actually are. Oh, I was reading a scientific paper by an Oregon State soil person, and she said clay, soil, and clay, silt, and sand are elemental. They cannot be changed. Clay will always be clay, silt will always be silt, sand will always be sand. And she said, get over it. So we just have to accept that. Those particles cannot be changed. What we can change is the organic matter. So what are the functions of soil? They support life and animal below and above ground. Decomposition. Decomposition happens in the soil. And from all organic matter, you get this wonderful, dark, earthy smelling soil that your plants can grow in and thrive. Soil acts as a water filtration. Sometimes the plants that grow in it act as air filtration, hopefully keeping our water pure. Functions of soil. This is the interesting part with the protozoa, nematode. Aren't they cool looking creatures? I just love this stuff. And the fungi on the tree root. So here's the tree root, and here are the fungi growing around it. And we'll talk about those later because they are so dang cool. And you live in soil. Remember in the Midwest in the Dust Bowl of the 1930s, people lived in sod houses? Not recommended. But birds really like it. They get food because what they found in sod houses is that all the animals, all the microbes and the invertebrates that lived in the soil dropped down on them while they were sleeping. And that's why a lot of people pinned sheets to the top of the sod roof that they were sleeping under. Okay. So soil bacteria is the most abundant of all the microbes. And they figure that the microbial action in our earth has been around for 3.6 billion years. It's amazing. If you take a piece of bacteria and you put it on a period at the end of a sentence, it would take 100 of them lined up, or 40,000 to go around your finger lined up. It's just amazing. They are the most abundant and they eat the most. There's good bacteria and of course there's bad bacteria. If you have enough good bacteria, they keep the bad bacteria in check. Next. Fungi is an amazing thing. But they are so small that if you take 40,000, they figure, and put them together, it would not be the size of a single thread. That's how tiny they are. So what they do, what bacteria and fungi do, is they hook themselves with slime to eat pieces of aggregates or roots, and then coat the roots. So if you have fungi around a root, what means that? A lot of time parasites can't get in there, and that protects the roots. And bacteria can do the same thing. They figure that my mushroom fungi, that can go for way out. They think that sometimes it goes for hundreds of miles from single spores of mushrooms. It's pretty cool. Okay. Protozoa. Protozoa and nematodes eat bacteria and fungi. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. And this is how the roots get the nutrients that are stored inside bacteria and fungi. So springtails and mites are like the next size up. And the nematodes are feeding on the mites. They're really the predators in the soil organism, in the soil biology. everybody eats everybody else, that's how things work. But the bacteria and the fungi are the smallest and they get eaten the most. They're actually known as fertilizer bags because they eat most of the organic matter. Okay. And then the protozoa and nematodes come along and eat the bacteria and the fungi. Then when they poop, they have all the nutrients that the bacteria and the fungi had, and it's in a solution now that the roots can access. Isn't that cool? And the way that happens is the root comes along and it needs a lot of phosphorus or zinc or something. And this little fertilizer bag that's now poop has all those minerals. So a cation exchange takes place, and that's how the root can access all the nutrients. Isn't that the coolest thing? I never really thought about how that happened. And the same thing with water. There's a bunch of water out here, there's a little water in the root, so an osmosis takes place because that's a pressure gradient, and that's how roots get water. It's just fascinating when you think how soil life provides life for our plants. So worms have a place. They're one of the best forms of creating pores in the soil so that air and water can be exchanged. And Mr. Mole does a really good job too, especially if you've ever had like a shade garden and Mr. Mole is making tracks underneath. None of your shade plants get water because it's all drained down. Yay! So the soil food web is one of the most important things. It's all part of the circle of life. Everybody gets eaten at some point, everybody poops at some point, and that's eaten by other things and becomes part of the organic matter that creates life for the plants in the soil. Testing your soil. And Pam, you're on. Okay, so I scavenged a few of the 10-minute soil handouts for testing soil. She's doing her Vanna White impression. And if you've never had your soils tested, it's an interesting process to go through. It tells you what kind of nutrient percentage you have. Everybody's heard about the soil pH. 0 is the most acidic. 14 is the most alkaline. Neutral pH is 7. Here in the Willamette Valley, because of our clay, our soil is more slightly acidic. That's why we can grow rhodies, camellias, blueberries so well with very little. But if you get your soils tested and you want to grow vegetables, which have a higher need for pH than rhodies and camellias, then you can find out if you need to add sweet and blind and at what time. So if you're interested, Pam has some. And then you can go talk to the soil testing people on the other side of classroom A. So the handout will tell you what to do. What you want to do is take your soil sample from the ground where you want to grow. If you're growing vegetables, then you want to take it where the root, like maybe the top 4 inches. You don't want to take it if you've added a bunch of soil amendments or mulch. You want to get down to the soil where the roots are going to grow, because the roots are the important ones that determine whether they can access the nutrients, if it's too alkaline or if it's too acidic. Then you put it in a clean container. You don't want it contaminated by anybody else, and bring it in. Compost is so important. So if you have a teenage boy and you fed him pizza all the time or hamburgers, he might think you're the best parent ever. However, you know as a parent that you need to give him a whole wide range of nutrients in order to grow a strong, healthy young man. So the same idea works for compost. The more different things that you can put in your compost, the more nutrients are available. And then there are more nutrients for the microbes to eat, therefore more nutrients are available for the roots. The plants sometimes, as photosynthesis happens, it's a chemical change, the plant will perspire, sweat off, or exude certain kinds of sugars and carbohydrates, which in turn attracts bacteria and fungi. So certain plants like certain bacteria to surround them, and they will exude certain chemicals that only these bacteria like. So it's a real symbiotic relationship. It's pretty cool. So the whole point is, the more different materials that you can put into your compost, like a garden compost rather than a single source like mushroom compost, the more benefit you're doing to the microbes in the soil and therefore into the plant roots. So our soil amendments, say you have soil at the top that's really cracked and awful and weedy, and you have a soil amendment that looks wonderful, it's dark, earthy, smells great. When you put in the soil amendments, you really have to dig it in so that it affects the soil. You just can't dig a little hole and think that that's going to spread by gravity. A soil amendment is different than a mulch. A soil amendment, by definition, is something that you dig in to change the composition of your soil. A mulch is what you put on top. And you can do that for water retention, to prevent weeds, to make your lawn look nice, to improve the porosity of your soil. But soil amendments are ones that you want to dig in. So let's talk about tilling. Let's talk about fertilizers. So everybody knows that nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium are the main components that most everybody needs and plants really need. These are the ones that plants need the most. Then there's the whole slew of micro fertilizers that they use too. So you can get different kinds. You can get a chemical fertilizer or you can get an organic fertilizer. The best is to create your own because then you know what you put into it. Because there are some soil amendments that are found to have wallboard in it. Well, wallboard is not necessarily something that you want to put into your soil. One time, and I'm talking really quickly now, some brilliant person decided that shredded tires would be a great mulch. Yeah, you would close a circle, a recycling circle, that you would shred the tires. What do you do with them? They just tear up your landfill. And then you put them on, it would prevent weeds, absolutely. Your soil would be warm. Well, what they found is sometimes there was spontaneous combustion. Not a good thing. But also when those tires degrade, those also aren't the chemicals necessarily that you want in your soil. So nitrogen is the top part, affects the top part of your plant. It has to do with root growth, plant growth. It gives your leaves the really deep color. Phosphorus affects, I just went blank. Phosphorus affects, the seed production and root growth, so it's the reproductive part. And potassium affects the root growth, and it's the storage of sugars and waters. There are many things that you can use, and it's strictly a personal opinion what you would like. But think, anything that you put into your soil is going to affect the life of the microbes. They're the babies, and they live in the top, right around where your roots are, but usually in the top 4 inches. So they're very, very much affected by what you do to your soil. So, taking care of your soil. Avoid soil erosion. Stay off wet soil because of compaction, because remember the root structure, the soil structure is so fragile that just stepping on it and really compact it, it destroys the structure, and then you lose the air and water porosity of what's going on in your soil. Add organic matter. If you've learned nothing else from this talk, that's the most important thing that you can do. If you have a lot of organic matter, you have a lot of microbes, you have dark colored soil usually, and your soil is healthy. Have your soil tested, apply recommended fertilizers, and the thing about tilling, let's go. It starts with the soil. This is the basic thing. I want to talk a little bit about tilling. Tilling is important, especially if you're working your soil, your garden bed, you just moved into a new house. By the way, most topsoil is scraped away during the house because the construction crews have found that it doesn't provide a firm enough foundation for your house. So it goes elsewhere. So most of the time when you move into a new house, and I've watched them do this, I do landscape design for clients, and one of the first things I do is see what the soil is like, and most of the time, it's our famous clay, a thin layer of compost that they put down, maybe 2 inches if you're lucky, and then sod right on top. Well, this is why your grass doesn't survive later on. One of my friends took her landscape allowance and put it all into soil, and then paid for the plant material later because that was the most important thing to do. So tilling is really important to get that soil amended, so it really affects the structure and the composition of your soil. But what it also does is slices and dices all the worms, all the microbes, it destroys the fungi, it destroys the soil structure. So it's good to do once or twice, but maybe not every year. And we're talking home gardens here, we're not talking commercial. That's an entirely different thing. Thank you.